What's a weird phobia you have? In the past, I worked at a warehouse that packed sodas and snacks into totes to be loaded onto trucks and delivered to vending machines. In this particular warehouse we had a milk cooler that was fairly small, had one dim light bulb, and no latch from which to open the inside. I walked in to quickly grab an smidge of milk for the order I was filling. One of the drivers, unbeknownst to me, walked in from his route and saw the cooler door cracked open and thought one of the guys left the cooler cracked and shut it closed, locking it from the outside and me on the inside. As soon as I heard the door shut I absolutely flipped out, like Primal, chew your hand off like a mouse, I need to get out of here by any means necessary kind of freak out. For about all of 5 seconds. The driver opened the door, and I tumbled out, wild-eyed. The driver immediately began apologizing profusely as the look on my face probably said I'm going to murder someone in a blind rage. I quickly calmed down, told him to never, ever, ever close that door again without checking for someone, and went back to work. It was that day that I learned I am severely claustrophobic. Luckily, even if he hadn't heard me immediately, I was working with 2 other dudes who would have had to open the cooler eventually. That's why I came to the determination that I do not handle enclosed spaces well, as even this simple rationalization wasn't enough to keep me from freaking out in very short order. My maggot story would really creep you out. A couple of weeks ago I accidentally left a 8-pound bag of frozen chicken wings in my truck for 3 days in 90 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. When I found them, the frozen chicken wings had turned into an 8-pound bag of maggots of various sizes on the inside and outside of the bag that they came in. I immediately grabbed the bag to get it out of the vehicle, and the grossest part were the fat ones that got caught between my fingers and the bag. They were cold and slimy, and a few popped and exploded by being smashed between my fingers and the bag. The inside of the bag was literally boiling with maggots. I could actually hear them. There were lots of them on the outside of the bag and on the floor of the truck. The main issue was killing them and cleaning up the mess, and it smells like I've had a dead body in my truck. This is not weird. It is very, very common, especially amongst people who have any sort of anxiety and social anxiety. In my early life I was much the same way. At some point the only job that I could find was a phone operator. So despite my feelings of phone anxiety, I sucked it up and decided I need a phone-specific persona that I held up, which was a fake person. I did this because I needed to get paid. Worked there for about a year, and had a couple other call center jobs before I got into my real career. This didn't exactly cure me. I still have anxiety about phone calls. But at least I can put on my phone with strangers persona when I have to call someone or answer a call, and that shields me. After years of doing the above, eventually I got to the point that 95% of the time I'm fine on the phone and only 5% of the time do I have anxiety about it. Of course, individual mood can influence the exact percentages, but 95/5 on average. Sometimes I still get anxiety if it's an important phone call. But most of the time I'm okay, and my fake persona and regular self are 100% in sync. Along with all forms of anxiety, and in my case especially social anxiety, any one thing that you can do that can go past that anxiety? Do it. Do it often. Do it every time you have the opportunity. This will make the harder experiences a little easier. Once anything gets easy enough to do, repeat this process. I don't even know what it's called. When I was 8 months pregnant, I went to a dinner theater, one I went to for every show every year, and 3 actors were tap dancing on a table, and the table was bowing in the middle, like it's supposed to, so it doesn't snap in half. I had a full-blown panic attack. That table was going to break and they were going to fall. I can't watch people sit on tables, porch swings, swings in general, those big beds people have hanging from ceilings. I just can't. I panic. I've had to really push it down at times when my daughter wants to go on a swing. I let her, but not if there are a lot of people around. She's almost 12 now. Our beds don't even sit on frames. They sit on box springs, and I know that sounds like it looks trashy, but we make it work. Half the things people sit on they wouldn't even really get hurt if it fell. No idea what it is. None at all. I have it as well. It's actually much more common than I first thought. It controls my entire life. I avoid alcohol and caffeine and limit other foods that are damaging to the digestive system. Some painkillers can be harmful, which is a total catch-22. I will deliberately overcook poultry and white fish just to make sure I won't get sick, and I immediately spit out anything that feels hard and sandy. I am still very underweight even for a short guy, and I am scared of overeating because I don't want to be sick or even feel like I'll be sick. On top of this, I have ulcerative colitis. You see, an emetophobia, a terrible combination. It messes with you mentally as well. I've developed separation anxiety and generally feel extremely dependent on others, which makes me feel childish and like a burden. I don't go to parties, bars, or nightclubs because I don't want to drink or see anyone else throw up. My parents both work in hospitals and complain about hypochondriacs every day, and I do not want to become one, but I already am. I've worked with therapists to try to do something about it, but I don't have the resilience to face my fear head on and worry I will be stuck with this for life. It's honestly super hopeless and depressing writing this. Thank God I'm not a woman who wants children, because emetophobia probably halts many good maternal figures from having biological children in the first place, and I don't blame them at all. The first one is water slides. When I was a kid, my mom took me to, I believe, Oceans of Fun, or something to that effect. It has this giant green water slide there. I had never been on a water slide up until that point, so I thought I would give it a go, and it was the biggest mistake I made as a kid. To begin with, I was flying down that thing fast enough to the point I almost went over the edge of the slide 3 or 4 times. It wasn't an enclosed water slide. At some point, my head bounced off of the slide because I somehow managed to get some airtime while going down the slide, had a screaming headache by the end. Lastly, when I finally made it to the bottom, I almost drowned. I could have swore when I looked at the depth of the water before climbing up the staircase to the top, it was shallow enough to where I could touch bottom, which was a concern of mine because I didn't know how to swim. For whatever reason, I couldn't touch the bottom of the pool when I shot off the slide. Lifeguard had to rescue me. I feared water slides so much after that that even small ones that are just a straight shot and aren't big at all terrified me. Almost passed out one time because I tried going down another 1 year later, and I just couldn't do it. Second phobia is a fear of dreams where I fall into the sky. No idea why I have those dreams, but they terrify me. I've had dreams where the world suddenly flips and I'm hanging onto a tree or something, trying to prevent myself from falling into the sky. Third fear is pool covers. The idea of being trapped underneath one doesn't bode well for me. Oddly enough, I'm scared of immortality. Something about being trapped on the mortal plane forever just unnerves me to the highest degree. Imagine being trapped under a collapsed pile of rubble, crushed but never dead, laying there with nothing but your thoughts to keep you busy for the next month or so until someone digs you back up. Or maybe if you're unlucky, you don't get found for thousands of years. Imagine accidentally falling into a pit of lava and having your skin seared and peeled off, but you never die, endlessly sinking to the bottom and burning alive. Imagine getting hit by a truck and feeling your bones turn into shrapnel and lacerate your internal organs, but you're not dead yet. How would you writhe and drag yourself to safety when your bones are nothing but a bunch of shattered chunks and you can't move anything? Stuff like this scares me because it's just one slip up, one mistake because I'm careless, and in I go for an unfathomably long time to suffer. A single hour of silence is unbearable to me, so I can't imagine how horrible 1,000 years of it would be, compounded with unending pain from infinite deaths. But thankfully immortality is nothing but a fantasy concept. Fear of open spaces, ESP when heights are involved. Could be a flat room that's very open with little to no furniture, makes me feel dizzy and like I'm gonna fall and sink under the ground. Could also be a fully furnished room in a high-ass building with large windows. If I can see too much of an open space without much occupying it, it just throws me off physically and causes me anxiety. Even high ceilings in a fully furnished room. I'll look up continuously and feel dizzy. Elementary school lunches were terrible for me. I have a fear of heights and open spaces, and separate it's terrible, but together it's a brain fuck. One time I was on a school field trip and we went on a high-ass bridge and I was crying BC I was scared of heights. My teacher's solution was to put me in a tall-ass building. The room deadest had barely any furniture. All I remember was a yoga mat on the floor flat. The windows were all glass stretching from the ceiling to the floor. All I saw was open and I felt so scared and dizzy I wanted to die. I literally sat in the middle of the room on the floor. I couldn't move. One time during recess I was on the blacktop and just kept looking at the sky. The openness of the blacktop and endless sky freaked me out so bad I kept asking the teacher when recess was over till she got annoyed with me. I felt like I was just gonna be consumed by the sky. I learned pretty recently that there is actually a name for it, phobia, fear of buttons. I know, it's nuts, but ever since I can remember I've been disgusted by buttons on clothes. Apparently some people are literally afraid of them and can't be in the room with them, but they mostly just gross me out. Can't tell you why exactly. I've worn them plenty of times for work or Boy Scouts, but only with a crew neck undershirt. It's where button meets skin that most grosses me out. I generally shake it off, but I can't help seeing people wearing them as grody. A cop without an undershirt or wearing a V-neck undershirt so the fleshy part of the neck and chest shows just looks smelly, not quite the right word but maybe the closest that exists, to me. Same with a fast food worker in a work polo. Not enough to alter my behavior in any way, but it still grosses me out. The weird thing is, the grossest top I can think of is a rugby, but those don't have buttons, just the open collar. When that 70s trend of women wearing them came back in HS, it ruined more than a few crushes. I guess because they look like button polos. Being in a committed relationship. It all stems from growing up with no one attracted to me, and my school tormentors were mainly boys, who constantly judged my appearance, as well, and physically pushed me around. Even my main bully hit me in the back of the head, while the teacher was right there, but she didn't do anything. Even my mom's ex hated me, and I was constantly grounded by him for the tedious things. My older sister's ex-boyfriend said something so rude about me, that infuriated my sister to the point that she demanded that he apologized to me. I am a 30-year-old, virgin, who wants to be loved, but the constant rejection and mistreatment growing up and disdain that men give me on a daily basis, has led me to be developed a fear of being with some guy, who do find me attractive, as he will end up judging me and hurting me, as well. Here goes another one. I already wrote here about my submechanophobia, but this also consumes me every single day. I don't think there's a name for it, but this probably doesn't make sense, but my eyes and ears are tricking me, and I'm not actually where I am. Basically, I'm sitting in my bed right now writing this, but my brain goes, what if this is a trick by your senses, and you are actually sitting in the middle of the beach not holding anything, making movements with your hand, and people are looking at you weird. Basically that, and that's why I never ever go to a bathroom outside my house. If I'm going to the bathroom at the mall, my brain goes, what if you're not in the bathroom, and if you start peeing now you will actually be peeing in the middle of the floor at the food court. And then I go, yeah, I can hold it until I get home. Another fear. I am scared of mega tsunamis to hell. The thought of looking out my window and seeing a mile-tall wave consuming everything in its path and there's nothing I can do about it is just unnerving. I have a lot of phobias, but I think my weirdest one is submechanophobia. It's the fear of man-made objects submerged in water, and it's basically thalassophobia's not so well-known cousin. TBH, it's not that weird, but it's weird because it's really fucking specific. I have no problem with the ocean, and I'm obsessed with deep-sea life. Add in a rusty, old sunken ship, submerged car, or submarine, and I'll have a panic attack, and I'll drown if I'm next to it. Also it's weird because it came out of nowhere. When I was a kid, sunken cruise liners and marine disasters were more or less special interests, and I would spend hours researching different disasters, the mechanisms behind what makes a ship sink usually, and watching videos of ships sinking. And then poof! Now I can't even look at a simple sunken ship without freaking the fuck out. Another weird one I have is emetophobia one because well, it makes me very conflicted if you can get my drift. Also my fears for this particular phobia shows itself as anger and self-preservation. I can't hear, see, or smell someone, not even myself, getting sick IRL or else I'll get irrationally angry. Then my flight response kicks in and I would want nothing to do with the person until I calm down, and that may range from either a few hours to weeks. I have agoraphobia and a phobia of wasps. Though I usually describe my agoraphobia as claustrophobia caused by humans. Being in a crowd stresses me out and I can't handle it. Especially if the space is limited so it becomes cramped. I have had to leave spaces because I couldn't handle the amount of people. It doesn't help that I'm fairly short. I also have this weird fear of my home burning down, had it since I was a kid. There have never been an incident or anything, and I have no issues making a controlled fire. But as a kid I would have nightmares about our house burning down. As an adult I sometimes worries how I would save my cats in the case of fire. But again, I've never been in that situation. I don't know anyone who has been in that situation. And it still makes me anxious. In comparison, me being afraid of wasps is quite logic, considering I was chased and stung by a swarm as a kid and some years later accidentally disturbed a nest and only avoided being stung by standing completely still. Anophilophobia, aka the fear of mosquitoes. It is related to trypanophobia and trypophobia, the fear of needles and itching. I live in Arizona, so I don't normally experience swarms of bugs. On one summer vacation when I was 10, I spent 2 months in Alberta, Canada after a huge flood. There were so many mosquitoes, you could catch one easily by holding out your hand and grabbing the air. Near the end, I also had a run-in with a hornet's nest. To top it all off, when I got home I had severe sleep deprivation for about 2 weeks. This is because a neck pillow I had in my bed was leaking rice. I thought they were bugs, so spent every night trying to keep the bugs off me. Every morning I checked my bed, but by getting out I shoved most of them off the bed, so for a few weeks I went to school, did my homework, slept on the couch for an hour or two, and spent the night in agony laying in bed because I wasn't allowed to do anything else after bedtime. Eventually I lost it and could not stop wiping down my body with my hands in a paranoid search for bugs. My parents took apart my bed and found the neck pillow. Over time I have gotten better, but I can easily be triggered again if there are enough bugs/very annoying bugs around me. Side story, my parents took me to a doctor to figure out what was wrong with me. After hearing my whole story, they decided to draw my blood. During the blood draw, I was looking away and giving my mom a death grip. The worker told me I could look, but the needle was still in my arm. I started panicking and my mom got really upset at the worker. We didn't go back again. Fire alarms, or similar. Not phone or clock alarms, but CO detectors etc., and any sort of weird beeping that could be an alarm freak me out. I do have a fear of fire, but nearly as intense as my fear of a fire alarm going off. When it was really bad I would lay awake at night trying to listen just in case. It's probably because my mother is hard of hearing, so I feel the need to be aware when I'm worried she won't hear, but it still happens when she's not around. Edited to add that I have never been in a fire big enough to set an alarm off, however the 2 times there was a small fire, a paper towel touched a burner on the stove and I poured my glass of water on it, and the menorah melted, totally bogus, and started to catch fire, but I heard the crackling and again dumped my water on it. I noticed and put them out, so I don't really have any cause for my phobia. Hitting my head. I'm a tall person and the world isn't made for us, so many objects pose danger to our foreheads. To compensate, our brains have a fully subconscious duck head down protocol that sees a potential obstacle and retracts the head down like a turtle or moves it to the side. All that without saying anything to the conscious mind, so it looks very weird how some dude walking and looking at his phone can perfectly avoid a tree branch or a low-hanging wire without even so much as glancing at it. Me, when I was drunk and the conversation just went there. Now my specific problem is that my duck head down protocol trademark, DHDP for short, is super overturned and very often gets falsely activated, so even a tree branch that's 20 centimeters above my head is enough to trigger it. And since it's fully subconscious, I don't even notice it, so to the outside observer it looks as if I'm randomly waving my head around, and for me to explain it more easily I just say I have a phobia of hitting my head, instead of all this.